You had written, among several other points, जो मेहनत का साथ नहीं छोड़ते, किस्मत उनका साथ नहीं छोड़ती. So I remember I had maybe too many sources when I first studied prelims. One was the ethics red book that Forum has, current affairs, also MGP. I think, especially the model answers I found to be.
So many congratulations, Pragya, on securing rank 91.
Thank you, sir.
Can you briefly tell us about yourself and your family background?
Sir, I am 24 years old. I graduated from St. Stephen's College in 2018. I did my degree in BA Honours Economics. My father is retired from the railways, and my father comes from Bikaner and my mother is from Jodhpur. So my home state is Rajasthan, although I've grown up a little bit all over the place, mostly in Delhi, and I currently live in Gurgaon.
The idea for appearing for civil services, when did it come to you?
So when I was much younger, around maybe middle school, I used to think, oh, my father's in the railways, I'm going to be in the railways. And I didn't really know anything actually back then. And then around 11th standard, I chose humanities as my stream. And back then I decided I'm going to make a career in public policy. I'm going to do a master's degree, and I never wavered from that up until just 2 weeks before I graduated. And I was supposed to appear for the D school entrance exam. And I realized I really did not want to. So that made me sit and think, what is it that I want to do? And it was always supposed to be either public policy or something to do in the public domain. And my father always told me that, oh, you should write the civil service examination, you will do well in it. And perhaps out of maybe reverse psychology, I was so vehemently against the idea, maybe because he told me so many times. And I remember back then someone told me, just because everyone's telling you to do something doesn't mean you have to not do it. Like, you can do it. So that's when I decided.
So you mean to say that there was this, when you're young, that rebel thing was telling you that because Papa is saying to do so many times, that's one reason why you shouldn't do it?
Perhaps I became stubborn that, oh, my answer is no, so it's going to be no. So it took me a while to finally loosen up and decide, maybe he's right.
First is, so you've been a student with us for some time, general studies, essay, and even current affairs and sociology optional. We'll come to these one by one. First is, how did you come to know about ForumIAS?
When I began my civil service preparation back in 2018, that year Anudeep Sir had secured rank 1. So I used to visit his blog a lot and look at his answer sheets. So I think he had written his test series at ForumIAS. So that's when I first heard about it. And so then the rest I joined, it happened by chance, either through a newspaper ad for current affairs classes that I think I saw at the opportune moment because I was worried about how I would prepare current affairs. And MGP I joined when I was looking to write a test series, and the schedule aligned perfectly with what I needed at that time for the cohort that I did join in. So it happened by chance, but and sociology as well. Once I'd written pre, I knew I was going to have to join a test series for sociology, and I did not have many sociology peers, actually any sociology peers, and I was not in touch with too many either UPSC aspirants or any groups like that. So I didn't have a lot of information, and I thought I don't want to agonize over this decision. I'm writing a forum test series. I like it. I'm just going to join the sociology test series here.
You mean to say that not having a lot of noise around you helped you make some restricted your choices, and you settled with forum, and it kind of worked out for you?
Yes, sir. I think instead of instead of doing a very in-depth cost-benefit analysis, I worked with what I had in front of me and tried to make the most of it.
So coming to newspaper, a lot of aspirants, they ask that which newspaper should we read, and is it mandatory to read the newspaper? So what is your opinion on it?
So while I do enjoy keeping up with the news, the newspaper has been an eternal struggle for me. Maybe because keeping up with daily current affairs in particular, I felt highlighted the micro topics for me too much, and I felt overwhelmed by them. So for this attempt, I decided I stopped reading the newspaper. Although that might be an adventurous decision, and I certainly do not advocate for it. People should make a choice based on what works for them. And but that's what I did. I did not read the newspaper.
So how did you cover your current affairs?
So for prelims, I looked at the yearly compilations, and for mains, I joined the current affairs classes, and then some topics I would, because they do come up. And for example, I remember the S-400 missiles were being delivered just before mains, and the question came in mains as well. So even if I'm not reading the newspaper, as an aspirant and as just someone who's generally aware of what's happening, I didn't know about it. So I thought, oh, this is a topic I should at least have 2 lines on. So I remember writing it down. And then the topics that were left out or I felt could be covered, I did look at the yearly compilations for mains also, just to finish the topics that I hadn't.
Coming to the prelims examination, which has really become a challenge. So first is, what was your broad strategy for clearing the prelims examination?
So I have given 3 attempts in civil services, and my first 2 I failed to clear prelims. So by no means am I an expert on this. And even my 3rd attempt, I plunged into it with blind confidence. No, that's wrong. It was blind delusion, because I remember giving mocks and getting maybe like 60 or something around that. And even then I was like, oh, I have 2 months, I'm going to clear this. And I was not talking to anybody else at that time, although I did get in touch with a few of my friends from college as prelims was getting closer, just to like refer strategies and sources and tips in general. But what I did was that till the end, even though my strategy was not perfect and there were so many things I did not know, I just kept working hard, and as hard as I could work. And in the last 1 month to 15 days, because the anxiety is so high, and prelims at this point is very factual as well, and there is a tendency to try to cover only those things that we don't know, and forget all the easy questions that are being asked. So I remember I used to make my father sit with me and just solve mocks, and not in the 2-hour time frame. I would just read the question, say the answer out loud, and he would tell me if it was right or wrong. And then I would just quickly look at the answer and move on, just so that I was maximizing the content I was covering in a day.
I often tell students that prelims is the tougher exam than the mains examination. The quality of life takes a huge toll. So what was your typical day like before the prelims, like 15 days or 20 days before the prelims exam?
So around 25 days before prelims was when I really went into full gear. Before that also I was studying, revising.
I want to know what time you woke up, what time you slept, and when did you study?
So I would wake up at...
Let's be honest.
I remember I was on my study table by 9:30. Prelims mein I used to wake up slightly earlier. Mains mein I used to start studying by 10:30. So 9:30, then I used to eat lunch at 1, and then I used to study till then. Then around 2:30 I would start studying again, and 7 is when I eat my dinner, and then after dinner I would study.
So from 2:30 to 7 you would study?
So it was my study schedule, like it was scheduled for just studying. But if you even get up once, you're not going to sit back for at least another 15-20 minutes. So it's not humanly possible, I think, to even focus or even sit in one space. I don't think it's advisable either for your spine to do that. So I mean, I can't account for those breaks, but I remember in my head, like, it was scheduled for studying. And after dinner, I would study for 2-3 hours. And then around 11, either my mother or father, whoever was supposed to hover over me, make sure I was focusing, would give up. And then I would go to my room, and this was the last 20-15 days before prelims. And I used to think, oh, how am I going to remember all the national parks? Although, so then I would watch videos on it just before sleeping. So that was my prelims life before.
So one common question that students ask me is that what strategy toppers follow to fill the circles, or during the examination, prelims examination, how do they bubble the circles? Like, do you do it as you go per the question, or do you do it at the end? What was your strategy?
So as I went through the questions.
As you went
because at the end, there's just a higher probability of making a mistake. And if you make one mistake and the whole series is gone, then that's too big a risk to take, in my opinion.
Yeah, annually we have people walk in with those problems. So how soon do you think, or how soon did you start preparing for prelims?
So I would 2 months before prelims, but I would say 3 months is better for your anxiety related issues.
Forum, I recommend, if you haven't cleared prelims for like a couple of times, it's better to give at least 4 to 5 months so that you don't have anxiety issues.
I had no idea about what other people do, what I should do, how many mocks I should solve. I just went with it.
So coming to the mains examination, General Studies Paper 1, how did you cover each parts of the syllabus, like world history, post-independence?
So I had history as a subject in 11th and 12th, and I was a fairly good student in school, not as good in college though.
What was your CGPA in school and college like?
So in 10th grade it was 10.
10 on 10.
And in 12th grade I scored 97.4 in my boards.
And how about graduation?
Yeah. I do not recall. It was somewhere around, I think it was 7 something.
Good. So General Studies Paper 1, how did you cover? What sources did you use?
So for history, because I already had a background in history, and I mostly, because usually the sources are the NCRTs, and I had done the NCRTs to an extent that if I had to write an exam on them today, I think I would only need 2 days for revision, because for boards we do it so many times. So I did not study those subjects before prelims. But after prelims, I was a bit of a scavenger, because I knew that there were many things I had not done. So I went through other toppers' notes, anything that would work for me. I found, I hope I'm getting his name right, Ayush Sir's notes. I think he was AIR 4 a couple of years ago on world history, post-independence India. And I took a printout and I just revised them once or twice before I gave the... And then for MGP, whenever I would solve those papers, if there was a topic or a question I had no idea about, I would add it on the back of those sheets. So then I revised that as well. General
Studies Paper 2, what was your source?
We do Lakshmikant so many times for prelims. I did not revise it page to page for mains. Then what I would do was, I would look at Lakshmikant and figure out the portions that I would need to remember. For example, the portions on fundamental rights or DPSPs, directive principles. Then I would take a picture of them and take a printout and only revise those bits, like the articles that I need to remember, judgments that I can add. Then I had a separate sheet for committee recommendations and judgments that I could add in my answer.
What was your approach for General Studies Paper 3, which has economy, agriculture, internal security, science and tech, disaster management, ecology and environment, all these subjects?
Also, if I may, I think there's one more aspect I need to highlight for paper 1. For geography, I made diagram-based notes because there was no time to revise all the NCRTs, and the type of questions that are asked in mains are sometimes not as lucidly covered in the NCRTs. So I remember just before taking 2 days making diagrams of all the points, so I'm able to revise it at the end. How Indian monsoons work, and those also help in writing answers for GS1. And so coming to GS3, I think GS1 geography and disaster management environment are fairly linked. So that preparation would overlap. Then for security, I'd done the basics before prelims, before I wrote prelims. Disaster management also I'd done the basics beforehand, and the contemporary stuff I worked on through current affairs classes, yearly compilations. Economy, because it was also my subject, so it's not something that I spent too much time on, just the basics, agriculture. First, I remember looking at Mrinal Sir's handouts that I discovered after I wrote prelims. I remember coming to Karol Bagh and looking at them and thinking, oh wow, this has everything I needed before. Those also helped a lot.
How did you tackle general studies paper 4?
Yes, so paper 4 is a bit tricky because everyone can answer it, but it's not necessarily a good answer. So
Yes, that's correct.
So case studies are fairly objective. If I read them, if anybody reads them, there's usually, I did not specifically prefer case studies because I think generally I was able to answer them well. And also I remember the first test I ever wrote was the ethics test in MGP. So this was before, the only answer writing I'd done before pre was 2 ethics tests. So I think that had also helped. I prepared some stuff then. And then later on, my preparation was mostly about making short notes on quotes, examples that I could use. And I was again a scavenger for them. I would look at other answer sheets and other toppers' notes and the examples they had compiled. So, and that worked for essay as well.
So I happened to see your answer copies, as you said, I think before the prelims. By that time you were, so I did see that you did use a lot of examples almost everywhere. So what was your source for it, or how did you try to come up with examples in GS4?
So I remember I had maybe too many sources when I first studied prelims. One was the ethics red book that Forum has. Then there was another handbook I had on ethics. I was looking at that and I was just trying to compile the sources and notes and just writing down the examples and definitions. So that was the main
Now
strategy.
that you come to it, so I wrote the ethics red book because one of your seniors from St. Stephen's, long back when I was taking her classes, Meenal was her name. So she said, sir, forum ka content is not good for GS paper 4. So that was the inspiration for writing that book. What was your approach for writing the essay?
So I did a little bit of debating back in college, although I wouldn't recommend too much of it. But what it did teach me was when we had a motion, just to break down the different parts of that motion, what every word means, and how to analyze that topic. So I tried to apply that same thing when I saw an essay topic. And because I think maybe I had a little bit of background in just employing that thought process, it was easier. So I did essay practice only after prelims. I think I wrote 4 essays. I wrote 2 essay papers, and then I would look at past essay questions and just take 20 minutes. I would set a timer and prepare the rough sheet of what I would write if I had to write that essay. That I did for around 6-7 topics. And other than that, I had a lot of quotes, examples, the same stuff I prepared for ethics, I used in essay as well. I remember bullying my father because sometimes, because this preparation is so tough and sometimes I really needed someone to sit on my head. But my father's retired and my parents are just enjoying life. So he would sit and play Candy Crush. And I would get really annoyed. So I would make him go through other toppers' copies and write down the examples for me. He wrote like 4-5 pages of that I did use some of them in my final essay though.
Wonderful. So you're part of the ATS augmented test series here at Sociology.
Yes, sir.
So one is that first, why did you choose Sociology as an optional?
So as I did hint before, I was not a very good student in college. So, but I was a good student in school. So I think I had a little bit of PTSD when it came to economics, just from not doing as well as I thought I should be doing in it. So I knew that if I went with that baggage and chose it as an optional, it might bring me down. So I knew that I had to choose a new subject. So when I looked at other syllabuses for different subjects, I think sociology appealed to me. it seemed exciting to study. So that, and I remember going through just other blogs, Quora posts, and everybody said sociology is a good optional. So I thought, okay, I'll pick sociology.
So in the test series, how were you able to extract value out of the test series, sociology test series that you joined here?
So I wrote 3 tests. I did go through all the answers. And if there was a point that otherwise in my sources were not covered, a thinker, an example, then I would make a note of it. Then there were some value addition classes as well. But there also, if a sir used to give examples and points, I would just note them down and then try to use them in my answers further.
So coming to the personality test, how have you scored in the personality test?
So I got 193.
That's a wonderful score. Which board did you get?
So my interview board was TC Anand Sir's board.
Okay, so what is the cordial board? Was it a difficult board?
It was extremely cordial. My interview was on the 6th of April, which was the second day. And I was the final person, not just of the panel, of the day. So I was the person after whom everybody would go home. And the interview, and I was fairly nervous. I remember that day in the afternoon session, right as I was about to enter, I turned to my mother and I said, Mama, what if I go in and cry? She said, then we'll study again. But the board was so calm, so cordial, and I came out smiling. So,
what was the most difficult question that the board asked you?
So I think I was a little lucky in that aspect. I don't think I was asked difficult questions, or at least questions I found difficult to answer. Although there were...
Did you answer all the questions, or there was something where you said I didn't?
For example, there were a couple of places. For example, in my DAF, I'd written about a paper I'd worked on in my college days about viability of household solar rooftop panels. And just as I went in, the first question TC Anand Sir asked me was, so Pragya, tell me, is it viable? And because we worked on it right after my first year, my co-authors and I, and we didn't really know much about economic modeling or how to write papers. It was the first one we were working on. And so there were very many variables that we could not take into account. One being the total space average Delhi household would have on their rooftop. And that's the first thing Sir picked on. He said, you're saying it's viable, but what is the average space available? And I said, Sir, I don't know. Then we moved on to other topics. Similarly, I'm from Jodhpur. And so I was asked to talk about the city by a panel member. And then by the second panel member, ma'am asked me a specific question on Umaid Bhavan's history. And I didn't know. So I told her. And then ma'am also told me the answer.
So did you take too many mocks, or you restricted yourself with respect to the mocks?
So I took 1 online mock and 1 in-person mock.
Digital notes or paper notes? What did you use?
Paper notes.
Paper notes.
Yes.
Generally, when we start with the civil services preparation, we start with a certain pen. So much so that sometimes we want to be soulmates with the pen, right? And then things change midway. Especially for prelims, you need to bubble, and then for the mains, you need speed. So what was your pen journey?
So I fairly maybe hilarious on my part that I did not know that for mains you can use any pen. I thought black ballpoint ही use करना है. So I was trying to finish my papers with black ballpoints, and although I did finish them, it was very hard on my arm. So then I decided there's no way I'm going to be able to write 7 papers with this. So then I decided to ask around. And I found out कि कुछ भी use कर सकते हैं. So then I shifted to Pilot V5, and we were best friends till the end.
Pragya, you have opted for Indian Foreign Service.
Yes.
Right. So what was the reason for choice of Indian Foreign Service over Indian Administrative Service?
So as I was talking about, as in 8th grade, I thought I would join railways like my father. And I went to Sanskriti school. And I'd just come to Delhi from another posting, and the colony next to my school is the Foreign Service colony, and that's the first time I heard about it. I was like, oh, ye bhi hota hai. And that's when I remember telling my friends, oh, this seems cool, I will join the Indian Foreign Service. And then growing up, I had more exposure. Diplomacy always seemed very exciting and promising. So when I did decide that I will write the civil service examination, and I think I had to stay true to that young girls wish that this has to be my first preference.
One last question. What was the most difficult phase of the examination for you?
So it was my first 2 attempts because I feel like I was stuck in a rut of sorts, that I would work very hard, get overwhelmed, not work for months. And it was very frustrating because I knew I could do it. And I just had to start reminding myself on a daily basis that what I was doing was enough, even if it was not perfect. If I didn't know all the sources, if my strategy is not very precise and it keeps changing. But what was important to me was that I'm not going to give up this time. So I think the phase before that was the hardest.
So Pragya, sometimes I write articles as neon on the forum or even otherwise. Were you ever able to go through them? And do you remember anything from them?
Yes, I do. And fairly cliched as well. It was the one before we wrote prelims. And I think it was maybe a month before we wrote prelims. And in that, you had written, among several other points, जो मेहनत का साथ नहीं छोड़ते, किस्मत उनका साथ नहीं छोड़ती. And just about, you had written just study, like wake up, sleep, study. Like that's all you need to do right now. And I don't know why that made me feel so emotional, because I was like, yes, मैं मेहनत करूँगी.
So we have been with Forum. We are very fortunate to have you as a student here. I hope you had a good experience with Forum. Would you recommend Forum IAS to any of your juniors or friends who are looking to prepare for civil services?
Yes, I would. Current affairs and also MGP, I think, especially the model answers I found to be fairly good.
Thank you so much, Pragya. One last thing. So people are going to write their prelims examination. What message, 3 or 4 things would you like to tell them?
I would say, don't let anything faze you. What you've done is enough. Go there and have a fun time. Because I remember on the day of my prelims, I first went and sat in the wrong room. But I was 20 minutes before and I was checking everything, including my roll number on the table, and I realized this is the wrong room. And I remember they didn't let us take our watches inside. And my correct room had nursery level tables. And I realized, and I hunched over.
So they didn't let you take the watch?
No, sir, they didn't. I mean, not to put anyone on blast, but I remember there was some concern amongst the aspirants when they were going inside the exam center. And some were arguing, and I thought, you know what, it's fine. I'll just go in there and do my best. It's fine if I don't have a watch. And because I kept telling myself, just stay calm, just stay calm. And then in my correct room at the prelim center, we had nursery level tables and teacher level chairs. And I tend to hunch over while I write, and I don't particularly have great upper body strength. So I thought, oh, there's no way I'm going to not be in pain by the end of these 2 hours. So I sat on the floor and wrote my paper. And the point being, just do whatever it takes and just have fun. For example, my set, the first 20 questions were history, and history is notoriously difficult in prelims. And I could, in my first round, maybe mark 4 out of those 20 questions. But nowhere did I think, oh, ye to gaya. I'm not clearing. Till the end, I thought I'm just going to give my best. And I think that helps a lot, because a lot of the questions test your intuition, they test your confidence. And I think that's what I would tell the aspirants at this moment. It's not your knowledge, it's also your personality that is being tested. So just take a deep breath and do your best.
All right. Thank you so much, Pragya.
Thank you, sir.